For the last 30 days, I did an experiment on myself. I lived what I'd researched to be the scientifically perfect well-being routine. Morning to night, every single habit, every single day, no skipping, and I tracked all of it on this. Yes, it's an analog paper habit tracker, but there's something about taking a box off by hand that I genuinely just love. And it's one less thing pulling me onto a screen, which, spoiler, becomes a whole theme of this video. Full honesty, none of these habits are new to me. I have been doing bits and pieces for almost 3, maybe even 4 years, but always on and off, only ever a few at a time, and never all of them locked in together for consecutive weeks. So a few weeks ago, I thought, what actually happens if I do every single one of them every single day for 30 days straight? And what happened, honestly, shocked me. There was one day where I cleaned, walked the dog 3 separate times, filmed an entire YouTube video, ran multiple client meetings, hit the gym, ticked every single box on my tracker, and I still wasn't exhausted. And I'll come back to that day later because it genuinely just surprised me so much. But also my screen time significantly reduced without me even trying to lower it. I went from laying awake till midnight, 1, 2 a.m. to falling asleep within minutes. And the one I did not see coming, a full month without 0 period cramps, which, if you know, you know. So let me walk you through the exact routine first with the science behind why each piece matters, and then I'll tell you everything that changed. So the very first rule, and honestly the one that changed the most, was no phone for the first 2-ish hours after waking. My phone is always on airplane mode during the night. But this time I actually automatically schedule it for downtime until 8 a.m. So even when I connected to the internet to do my morning affirmations, I got 0 notifications. It literally blocked everything and even switched to a calmer lock screen. The science is simple. The second you pick up your phone in the morning, you hit your brain with a flood of dopamine and a big spike of stress before you even left the bed. And that basically sets the bar for your whole day. So when you skip it, your nervous system gets to wake up gently instead of straight into fight or flight, high beta brain waves. And this single habit is what lowered my screen time by the end of the month without me ever trying. And I'll show you exactly how at the end. So here's what I did instead. The moment I was up, I did a 5-minute journal, just a quick gratitude and intention entry. Journaling like this is one of the most consistently backed things for lowering stress and setting your focus for the day. Then I put on my affirmations, a 5 to 10 minute recording, whatever just resonated that day, and I said them out loud to myself. Whether or not you're into affirmations, talking to yourself with intention first thing is basically priming your mindset before the rest of the world gets to, influence your thoughts. Then getting the body going. While the affirmations played, I multitasked through the rest. So I opened the window to air out the room, then did some lymph flow, literally just jumping and swaying my arms, plus a bit of gua sha on my face. Your lymph flow system clears waste and fluid out of your tissue, and unlike your blood, there is no pump. So it only moves when you move. So that gentle bouncing and gua sha nudge it along, which is also why it takes down that morning puffiness. Then I cleaned my retainer, did my skincare, deodorant, made my bed, got dressed, and once the affirmations finished, I switched to oil pulling so I could actually speak out loud until then. So just swishing around the oil while I carried on with everything else. Making the bed sound super trivial, but it's a tiny completed task that gives you a hit of momentum, and a tidy space lowers mental clutter as well. Then I fed our dog and had a big glass of water with my probiotics and morning supplements. You're pretty dehydrated after a full night's sleep, so rehydrating first thing wakes everything up, and then the probiotics are for my gut. Then breakfast, and this is the one eating rule that I kept at every meal throughout the 30 days. Protein and fiber first. Healthy fats, at least 25 grams of protein before anything sweet. The reason is blood sugar, leading with protein and fiber. It's the glucose spikes from the rest of the meal, so you get steady energy and fewer cravings instead of that sugar crash an hour later. Then I brushed my teeth, and the next was the dog walk, and I made sure to get 30 to 60 minutes of morning sunlight and movement. This is a non-negotiable, probably the most underrated habit in here. Morning light sets your circadian rhythm, which controls your cortisol curve, your energy, your mood, and how well you sleep that night. It's like pretty much pressing start on your body clock and your melatonin. And I'm fairly sure this is the habit behind one of the biggest changes I noticed, going from laying awake for hours to falling asleep within minutes. More on that when we get to the results. Then when I got back, I tidied or cleaned one thing for 10 to 15 minutes. Again, small win, clear space, clear mind, and only then, easily 2 hours into my day, did I touch my phone for the first time other than affirmations. And so all of that put me to about 8 or 9 a.m. On a weekday, my work was built around deep work blocks. So 90 minutes of really deep focused work, usually done on my walking pad, just walking slowly until I felt like sitting down. Working in those 90-minute blocks lines up with your brain's natural focus and recovery cycle. So you get more done before your attention tanks. And doing it on the walking pad meant I was, adding up to my daily step count and keeping my body moving without it being a full-on workout. And this structure really helped shrink my work hours in a way that I did not expect. I'll break down the exact numbers later because it really changed how much of my day was free and where I was able to do other things other than work. And then so between every single deep focus work block, I did one nervous system regulation tool. So either stretching, physically shaking my body out with some diaphragmatic breathing, or just putting on some music and dancing. That slow belly breathing literally flips you out of that fight or flight into rest and digest by activating your vagus nerve, and shaking it out discharges that build up stress energy. So instead of grinding myself into a frazzle, I was resetting every 90 minutes and then hitting that again. This is one thing I really want to try and keep going, like hanging onto these little resets. They turned out to be a huge part of why my 3 p.m. crash disappeared completely, but I'll come back to exactly why. Then lunch I always ate outside in the sunshine, so no phone, taking my lunch supplements. I got even more light in, actually tasting my food, not being distracted. And then I did one more regulation break before doing a little bit more work, and then I was already done for the day. And on the weekends, I just dropped that work structure but kept everything else. Then 2 things ran in the background all day. One being movement, one being hydration. Between the morning walk, the walking pad, and the evening dog walk, I hit 10,000 steps without even trying. I also played a lot of tennis, so 3 to 4 times a week, which either let me blow past it or brought me up to those 10,000 steps. In terms of tennis or for actual workouts, my rule was to never have more than 2 rest days in a row. So I was training every couple of days or sometimes even more if I felt like it. In terms of hydration, I had at least 3 of these 42-ounce bottles of filtered water, and I made sure to get one done before 11 a.m., one before 2:30 p.m., and then one before 4 p.m. That's over 3 liters, which I genuinely needed with the tennis and this heat, but my hard cutoff was 8 p.m. Nothing after that, or I'd be up all night needing to pee and wrecking my sleep. And then the same logic applies to food, so there was no dinner after 6 or 7 p.m, so I wasn't digesting a big heavy meal when I was trying to wind down or sleep. So after work is when I would hit the gym, and then after that, dinner, and then just chill before I started my wind down routine, which was basically the morning but in reverse. So instead of waking up my system, I was switching it off. So phones and screens went away between 8 and 9 p.m. Then I dry brushed, showered, brushed my teeth, and did some posture work lying on my yoga blocks to decompress my spine. And then I got into bed and did the slow stuff. So I drew one little thing every single day, something creative and screen-free. I did my nighttime journal entry. I read a few pages. Then I used this cork mouth stretcher thing because it apparently releases your jaw for when you grind your teeth. I put the legs up the wall for 5 to 10 minutes while I read, and that whole slow sequence, especially the legs up the wall, pulls you into your parasympathetic rest state. So by the time the lights are off, your body is already calm, and I was in bed before 11, usually closer to 10, because going to bed at a consistent, earliest time is one of the biggest levers there is for actually feeling rested. Okay, so that was the whole routine, every single habit that I did every single day for 30 days. Now here's everything that actually changed, because this is the part that really shocked me. Let's start with the energy and the output. The energy was the first thing I noticed. There was one day I'll never forget, and this is the one that I mentioned at the start, where I cleaned, took out the dog on 3 separate walks, including a long one, filmed an entire YouTube video, had multiple client meetings, went to the gym, ticked off every single thing on my tracker, including reading and something creative, hit my 10,000 steps without even using the walking pad that day. And I still watched half a movie in one single day, and I wasn't exhausted. Of course I was tired, but that kind of good, accomplished kind of tired, not the drained, scraped empty kind. I also had no afternoon slump, no energy crash, nothing. If you're like me and most people, that 3 p.m. wall is just a given, but it was completely gone. And those little nervous system resets between work blocks were, I think, a huge part of why they actually recharged me properly instead of just grinding me down throughout the entire day. Then workouts, insane. Because I was getting so much more work done in those deep focused time blocks, my actual work time shrank significantly. So suddenly I got the same amount of work done, but I had way more time for the gym, more walks, more life, and I stopped going to bed every single night feeling like I'm still behind. Then again, the wired feeling was completely gone. That racing heart when I was waking up also gone. And like I said, I was able to fall asleep super quick. By nighttime, I was genuinely tired, and not that like mushy brain tired, just really calm and ready to go to sleep. And I would fall asleep within minutes. I would sleep through the night and wake up actually rested. Before this, I wasn't tired until 11, midnight, sometimes even 2 a.m. because I was still wired and felt like I had to keep working to catch up on whatever it was. Now I was ready for bed at 9:30 and waking up earlier. So those nervous system resets and the morning light were really doing exactly what they had promised. And coming back to the screen time, my screen time went down significantly, which wasn't even a goal of mine. It makes total sense though, because most of my screen time used to come from those morning and bedtime scrolling times. Once I cut both ends, I just didn't crave it, which is a whole dopamine thing again. When you don't spike it first thing in the morning by scrolling, your brain stops demanding the phone for the rest of the day just to feel okay. And I just want to say this because I think a lot of you feel it. If you're constantly wired and you can't really switch off, you crash every single afternoon and you reach for your phone just to cope, that's not you being lazy, broken, or undisciplined. That's a dysregulated nervous system and a dopamine system that's being hijacked. I felt like mine really reset within those 30 days just from supporting it properly. So I believe yours can absolutely too. And then some other things that I genuinely did not expect. For basically the whole month, I felt very just happy, content, and accomplished, fulfilled in this, steady, purpose-driven way. And I usually get some days like that, but they tend to swing with my cycle. And this month, my cycle didn't drag my mood or my head around at all. My hormones just felt very balanced. I also had 0 period cramps. And for context, I used to get debilitating ones. So a full month with none of them was a huge celebration. And I really think the nervous system regulation plus a solid month of really healthy habits played a huge role, along with the gut cleanse that I did a couple months ago and the supplements that I'm currently taking, but I'm making a whole separate video on that, so subscribe if you don't want to miss that. And then the gut cleanse, including the results, is already out, so you can watch that and I'll link it up here. On top of that, my skin stayed super clear and smooth the entire month, and the puffiness also went down again, partly because of the lymph flow, I'm assuming, and then partly eating clean. Because I'll be honest, some of that puffiness of course came back after the gut cleanse, because eating ultra clean forever isn't really sustainable for me, and I'm okay with that trade-off. And I'm assuming it will also come back after this, but just knowing that a solid routine very clearly keeps it in check is just awesome. So here's my honest takeaway after 30 days. It was never just any single one of these habits. It was all of them combined, stacked together every single day that did it. And none of it was about being perfect or chasing some aesthetic. It was about regulating my nervous system so my body could finally do its job. The energy, the sleep, the focus, the clear skin, the hormones, those weren't the goal. They were the byproduct of just taking care of myself properly and consistently. So is the goal to live like this perfectly for the rest of my life? No, obviously not. But now that I've felt what it actually does, I'm so much more inclined to keep that habit tracker going and just tick off as many as I can. Not perfectly, not every single habit every single day, but just consistently doing the best I can. And so many of you have been asking how to actually put something like this together for your own life. So I've been quietly building a program that works you through this whole inside and out process step by step. It's not open yet, but the waitlist is, and getting on that waitlist means you'll be first to know when it launches and you'll get the best price. Link is in the description, no pressure, no commitment, just pop your name down if you want in. But yeah, if you try even a couple of these, start with the morning sunlight and the no phone window and tell me in the comments how you feel. And if you want a deep dive on positive affirmations, the science behind it and my exact routine, you can watch this video next. Or if you want to know about the 5 micro habits that absolutely transformed my life, you can watch this one next. So I'll see you in the next one.